Have you ever found yourself staring out a window, lost in thought, and wondered, am I okay? Truly okay? It's a simple question, but the answer can feel incredibly complex. We talk a lot about our physical health. We know when we have a cold or a broken bone. But what about our mental health? How do we take its temperature? How do we know if it's flourishing or if it needs a little more care? For a long time, we've defined mental health by its absence. You were considered mentally healthy if you didn't have a diagnosed disorder like depression or anxiety. But this is like saying you're physically healthy just because you don't have a life-threatening illness. It misses the whole point. True health, whether physical or mental, isn't just the absence of disease. It's the presence of well-being. It's about vitality, resilience, and the capacity to engage fully with life. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to their community. Notice the active, positive language here. It's not about not feeling sad, but about being able to cope. It's not about not having problems, but about being able to work productively despite them. Let's think of it like a garden. Your mind is a garden. Poor mental health is when the garden is overrun with weeds, pests, and drought. You can see the problems clearly. But a truly healthy garden isn't just one without weeds. It's a garden that is vibrant and thriving. It has rich soil, strong roots, and it produces beautiful flowers or nourishing fruit. It can also withstand a storm or a dry spell and bounce back. This is what we're aiming for. Not just a weed-free patch of dirt, but a flourishing ecosystem. So, what are the flowers and rich soil of our mental garden? A key component is what psychologists call emotional regulation. This is your ability to manage and respond to your emotional experiences. Imagine you get some frustrating feedback at work. An unregulated response might be to lash out in anger or to spiral into self-criticism for the rest of the day. A regulated response, however, isn't about not feeling frustrated. You absolutely will feel it. But you can acknowledge that feeling without letting it hijack your entire day. You might take a deep breath, consider the feedback, and decide on a constructive next step. This ability to hold your emotions, rather than be held captive by them, is a cornerstone of mental wellness. Another vital sign of a healthy mind is the quality of your relationships. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. A landmark Harvard study, which has been running for over 80 years, has followed the lives of hundreds of people to see what truly keeps them happy and healthy. The clearest message from all that data? According to Robert Waldinger, the current director of the study, it's that good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Period. This doesn't mean you need 100 friends. It's about the quality, not the quantity. Do you have people in your life you can truly count on? Can you be vulnerable with them? Do you feel a sense of belonging? Strong, supportive connections are like the sunlight and water for our mental garden. Absolutely essential for growth. But what about when we're alone? How do we fare in our own company? This brings us to another crucial element, a coherent sense of self. Do you have a stable understanding of who you are, what you value, and what gives your life meaning? The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote extensively about the self. For him, despair wasn't just sadness. It was the sickness of not being able to be one's true self. A healthy mind has a narrative, a story you tell yourself about who you are that feels authentic and consistent. This doesn't mean you can't change or grow. In fact, a healthy sense of self is flexible, but it's anchored in core values that guide your decisions, from the small choices, like how you spend your Saturday, to the big ones, like your career path. Without this internal compass, we can feel lost, adrift in a sea of external expectations and pressures. Resilience is another hallmark of mental health. It's your ability to bounce back from adversity. Think of it like a psychological immune system. We all get exposed to germs, stress, failure, loss, disappointment. Resilience is what allows your system to fight off the infection and recover. A 2004 study by psychologist George Bonanno on grief and trauma revealed something surprising. While some people experience prolonged distress after a traumatic event, the most common response is actually resilience. Most people, over time, manage to return to their normal level of functioning. This isn't because they are emotionless or tough. It's because they possess coping mechanisms, a supportive network, and an underlying belief in their ability to overcome challenges. They bend, but they don't break. So, a good question to ask yourself is not, do I ever fail? But, what happens when I do? Now, it's important to remember that mental health exists on a spectrum. It's not a binary switch that is either on or off. Just as you can have days where you feel physically sluggish, you will have days, or even weeks, where your mental health dips. You might feel more anxious, less motivated, or more irritable. This is a normal part of the human experience. The key is to recognize these dips and understand what they might be telling you. Are you overworked? Are you neglecting your relationships? Have you stopped making time for things that bring you joy? These feelings are not a sign of failure. They are data. They are your mind's way of signaling that the garden needs a little extra attention. Maybe it needs more water, more rest. Maybe it needs more nutrients, more connection and fun. So, how can you check in on your own mental health? You can start by asking yourself a few simple, honest questions. How have I been feeling, really? Am I engaging with my life, or am I just going through the motions? Do I feel connected to others? Do I have a sense of purpose, even a small one, that gets me out of bed in the morning? And importantly, am I able to handle the everyday stresses of life without feeling completely overwhelmed? Your answers don't need to be perfect. No one's garden is free of the occasional weed. The goal isn't to achieve some mythical state of perpetual happiness. The goal is to cultivate a mind that is resilient, engaged, and authentic. A mind that can experience the full range of human emotions, joy, sadness, anger, and love, and find meaning and growth in all of it. If you've been listening to this and feel like your garden has been struggling for a while, that's okay. It's a sign of strength, not weakness, to recognize when you need help. Just as you'd see a doctor for a persistent physical ailment, seeking support from a therapist or counselor is a proactive way to care for your mind. So I'll leave you with a question to reflect on. What is one small thing you can do this week to tend to your mental garden? Maybe it's reaching out to a friend, spending 10 minutes in nature, or finally picking up that book you've been meaning to read. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Growth often starts with the smallest of seeds. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video gave you a new perspective on mental health, please consider liking it and subscribing for more content that explores the art and science of living well. Share it with someone who might need to hear this today. What does a healthy mind look like to you? Let's continue the conversation in the comments below.